like this kind of party.
It's time for the GT3 Regional Tour Americas. Get ready for high-speed action.
The doctor said my heart can't take the speed.
Christopher Smith, 42. Fast Panties Racing.
He said to stick to bingo and to read, but I
Hello, I am Roger Kincaid, and this is Interlagos, a counter-clockwise beast that demands perfection. From the terrifying plunge through the Senna S to the rain-threatened climb up the main straight, this track doesn't just test the machinery, it tests the soul of the driver. So welcome to Sao Paulo, and this natural amphitheater of speed. Let's get down on track.
Thank you, Roger. Now, the Fast Panties Racing Z06 Corvette GT3, driven by Christopher Smith, 42, is coming around for his first lap through the Senna S's, clipping those apexes and looking confident so far.
Yeah, Clint, he's really hitting those apexes, and he's definitely using all the track in that turn. And this is something Christopher Smith, 42, has been a little bit guilty of, not using the entire track.
That's absolutely right. And in a tight little twisty track like Interlagos, it's really important to use every centimeter that they give you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Clint. And now we're headed up to a really tricky section. In fact, a lot of sections on Interlagos. Everything's a bit off kilter, off camber. No two turns are the same. And it's very easy to make one mistake that leads into mistakes further on down your lap. This looks slightly conservative here. We're going kind of uphill, coming off to another off-camber right turn. It seems to take forever, and the car seems so slow through these turns. It's incredibly hard.
Is that right, Lacey? All right, and here we are coming up to the final turn on the track, and Christopher Smith, 42, is heavy into the anti-lock brakes and completely misses the apex. That's going to cause him to be slow all the way up this front straight.
You lose so much momentum.
There's nothing you can do about that. If you miss that apex, that's just it for your lap.
Easily lose 1 or 2 tenths.
Just trying to cut it close to the pit entrance, and we'll see what he can do.
And Christopher Smith, 42, crosses the line. Let's see. Looking at P6, about 1 second off the pole. It's about as mediocre as it can get, Clint.
Let's hope they can move up during the race. All right, well, welcome to race day here in the GT3 Americas Division 7 Championship, coming to you from Interlagos in Brazil. On a rather foggy day, we have Fast Panties Racing, and Christopher Smith pointed in to the number 6 spot with Paulo, Jinan, Justin, Joachim, and Amar ahead of him. Noting that Christopher Smith, 42, is again not the fastest Corvette Z06 on the track today. Now, my name is Clint Finderbaum. I'm here with my co-host and W Series 5-time Division 7 America's Championship winner, Lacey Reynolds. Say hello, Lacey.
Hey, hey, hey.
And yeah, so this season is getting off to a kind of an unknown start. Christopher Smith, 42, of course, would like to be doing better. He's had some bad starts, but last week was a decent result for the team. So we'd like to see this week is them building on everything they learned last week and applying it to the race this week.
Yeah, Cliff, now if you look at the Fast Panties Racing Z06, you'll see that it has a number 1 number plate, and that means that Christopher Smith, 42, is the highest rated driver in this race. Now, sitting at number 6, that's not where you'd like to see. You'd like to see that number 1 plate sitting up on pole position.
That's right. Now let's see how they can do from their 6th place spots. We are green, we are green, we are underway. The cars have fanned out. Christopher Smith is getting a good start. It looks like he's going to be able to make a move on 5th and 4th. That's Joachim in the 992 and maybe even Amar. Now Amar, the Z06, gets an early cut in down through the Senna S's And Christopher Smith is looking like he's going to even lose out now, potentially on 7th place with Urson in his bright green 992. And yes, that's absolutely what happens. Early on in this race on lap 1, Christopher Smith 42, again, struggling to stay in the position they qualified.
Yeah, another rough start by Christopher Smith 42 with Urson now looking like he's going to take that 6th place. Christopher runs wide.
Cold tires. I'm falling behind like a bitch.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, he's just dropping back like a stone. He's now lost 7th and 8th place.
Yeah, Martin's also got by in the McLaren. You know, Martin's attacking Urson ahead of him. Fast Panties Racing looks like they're sitting at about 8th place at the moment. But maybe now, you know, once the race gets started, Christopher Smith 42 has shown the ability to move back up. And here we go. Maybe the tires are now starting to warm up and he's starting to make that push, but not towards the front, but back to where he was less than one entire lap ago. Lap 1, always extremely rough on Fast Panties Racing.
Yeah, they really need to get their heads wrapped around this. They spend the first couple laps of the race moving back to where they were at the start of the race instead of moving forward. And now, you know, we're going to get to see Christopher Smith fight with Martin here in the McLaren coming down to the Senna S's. Martin taking that defensive line. Christopher Smith sending it up the inside. Well done. You can tell by the car placement that Christopher Smith is getting tired of these bad starts and is trying to make up for it with some aggressive driving. 3 wide down the back straight, I'm not sure is the right answer. Urson trying to get in the mix. Christopher Smith running wide. And it looks like we're in for a couple corners of good battling between Christopher and Martin. Christopher finally gets by, but then runs it wide and Martin takes back the undercut. A little shake and bake for Martin D. Foster.
Martin D. Foster is not inclined to give up that position. He managed to slide it up there at the start of the race when everything was getting backed up. And he's definitely driving defensively to keep Christopher Smith 42 behind him.
Yeah, that's effectively slowing down this whole second pack of cars here. This is a very flowing track. A lot of the corners are off camber, uphill, downhill. So when you start veering offline to protect your position, you do start going slower because you are quite a bit off the racing line. And here's Martin again. Try to the fan, but it looks like Christopher Smith 42 is going to try to make a move outside, inside, shaking, baking. Now let's see if he can cook.
That's extremely corny, but I like it. And if anything, Fast Patty's Racing so far today is cooking turd sandwiches. Let's see if he can do anything with Martin D. Foster here in his McLaren 720 GT3. It's quite the foggy day here at Interlagos. And Martin goes in deep. Martin goes in too deep, and Christopher Smith 42 does get that pass done. That's going to give Christopher Smith 42 a little buffer. And now let's see if he can finally, eventually, hopefully, start to make some inroads into the group of cars ahead. As you can see, we can't even see the next group in these shots. Christopher Smith 42 goes a bit wide, and Martin's having a little peak. But that seems like the pink, or should I say the peak, of someone who's just not going to be able to get it done. I think that Christopher Smith 42 is now free of this challenge and back up where you should have been at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, Clint, it looks like he's finally gotten back to where he should have been, as you said. Now he's free to try to break away from Martin D. Foster and head up towards the lead pack. I just don't know if they have the pace today. So for another few laps, nothing changes, but as you can see, behind Christopher Smith 42, it appears that we have a new challenger. Now Martin's starting to feel the heat. Christopher a little sloppy through the Senna S's, not going to get a good run down this back straight.
No, he's not getting a good run at all, and that's going to cause Martin to kind of catch up. And to be honest, Ryan's pushing Martin, and it's starting to look like Christopher Smith 42 is a little bit of a cork in the bottle as Ryan takes the small peak. Martin's feeling the heat. Christopher Smith checks up Martin. Now Ryan's going to be able to slip on through. Now Ryan driving defensively. Now we have a battle right behind Christopher Smith. And that should allow the Fast Panties Racing Z06 to stretch out a small lead while these two go at it.
Ryan, again going wide and letting Martin back through. And as long as these two keep slicing and dicing, Christopher Smith 42 should be able to pull away and protect this middle of the run finish. But, you know, sometimes it's about preserving what you have available to you. And in my research, to be quite honest with you, even though the Fast Panties Racing Z06 is the second Z06 in this race, it's only the third slowest Z06 in the entire series. This is the fifth split. Now Ryan's trying to use the power of that AMG to pass along the outside of the front straight. What's interesting is he will find himself on the inside of the second part of the Senna S's, but he's just outbraked by Martin again.
That McLaren is seriously good under braking. Kind of the push and pull of the qualities of both of these cars. Got that big power in the AMG, that tight hanging in the McLaren. As Ryan tries again to get on the inside of Martin. And it looks like that finally it's going to happen. Now what's interesting here is, of course, we're following the Fast Panties Racing Corvette up ahead, but Ryan seems to have the pace. And now that he appears to be clear of Martin, I think we're going to see him make a serious push for that Fast Panties Racing Corvette Z06 with Christopher Smith 42 behind the wheel.
Yeah, and now that Ryan has broken free of Martin, let's go ahead and fast forward to lap 10, where Ryan has caught up with Christopher Smith 42. And now it looks like Christopher Smith has all he can handle with Ryan Oliveira and that AMG GT3 barreling down his neck through the Senna S's on that back straight. You know the AMG has the power. Christopher Smith using all the track, going defensive. Ryan following. This will compromise Christopher's exit out of this turn. He goes wide. Ryan's keeping it tight, sticking it on the inside. Christopher's going wide. It's a drag race. That Corvette has no shortage of horsepower. Can he manage just to hold on?
Yeah, we're seeing some really good racecraft out of Christopher Smith 42 today. Once those tires warmed up, he's been able to place that Corvette Z06 wherever he wants. And even though Ryan seems to have the pace in that A and G, Christopher Smith 42 has given him everything he can handle. And like you said, Lacey, it's important to remember that the Fast Panties Racing Z06 was only 0.4 seconds off the pace for the fastest Z06 the entire weekend here at Interlagos. So sometimes the track just does not suit the car.
That's absolutely right, Clint. The car can feel balanced. You can be hitting the apexes. You can be using all the track. And you just don't have the lap time. And sometimes that happens. You know, this is a very flowing track. It's very difficult, perhaps. It's just really hard to use the Corvette at its peak in the moments when it's most important to use it. The AMG has a lot of power. That comes in useful all over this track. As Ryan takes a peek inside, Christopher Smith doesn't put up much of a fight. See where Ryan's come from in 8th. Sitting here at 6th place. The writing's on the wall. That position was always going to be Ryan's, and so Christopher Smith wisely more or less gets out of the way and lets Ryan move on and see what he can do. And this race hasn't had much attrition, and Christopher Smith hasn't had much speed.
No, so let's go to the last lap, and certainly Lacey battling for 6th position in the 5th split when there are only 7 splits. That's pretty far back from where Fast Patty's Racing was last week. The series is such that you do get 4 races where you can throw away the points. It is starting to look like this will certainly be one of those races for Fast Patty's. So at least everyone got out healthy. The car is undamaged. Even if potentially the team's ego faces a little bit of a beating as compared to last week. What are your final thoughts?
Well, Clint, you know, this, they can throw away this race. It's not the end of the world that this was a bad race. It's just going to be bad for their ego. We'll have to wait and see what Fast Patty's Racing and Christopher Smith 42 do between this race and the next one to see if they can find some more speed. This was embarrassing for them today. They lost out at the start. They fought their way back to exactly where they started the race at. So this weekend was kind of all for nothing. You can argue that potentially they gained some experience, but I always fail to see how experiencing a completely losing weekend can teach you anything.
Wow, Lacey, that was pretty cut to the bone. I bet you're really fun at parties. But on one hand, you're right. It just seems like a wasted weekend. At the end of the day, the race is over. Christopher Smith and Fast Patty's Racing comes in 7th place at Interlagos this weekend after falling behind and working all day to achieve actually 1 dropped position. This drops them 2 positions in the Division 7 Championship standings. So it'll be exciting to see what happens this week with Christopher Smith 42 and Fast Patty's Racing. And we excited look forward to seeing you next week for the GT3 Regional Tour Americas Division 7 Championships.